The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Cedar.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Cedar.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. My name is Sam Cedar. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Dr. Rob Davidson, Executive Director of the Committee to Protect Medicare and the ACA. The doctor, you may remember, who had an interesting exchange with Mike Pence in a diner in Iowa. Also on the program today, impeachment vote in the Senate. Susan Collins will vote to acquit because he's learned his lesson. And Doug Jones will vote to convict. Meanwhile, 71% of Iowa's numbers are in, and Joe Biden lost. And apparently 2 people won. Maybe. And Trump hits an all-time high in lies during his State of the Union address / Price is Right knockoff. Meanwhile, Biden's donors are quaking and Buttigieg moves into second place in New Hampshire. Rand Paul outs the whistleblower on the floor of the Senate. The top Navy SEAL officer quits over Trump's war criminal promotional tour. Lastly, Gavin Newsom just pardoned Bayard Rustin. Posthumously, obviously, a major icon of both the civil rights movement and I don't know if it was necessarily the gay movement at that point, but civil rights movement, who was arrested for having had sex with men. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Everyone is here. Jamie, it turns out, is alive. Welcome, Jamie. Welcome back.
Here I am. Can't keep me down.
No, she is. She's still breathing. Let's see. Where are we now? Okay. We got a lot of stuff to cover. That's been sort of insane around here. I'm still blurry-eyed. We have 71% in. Is that right? 71% in from the Iowa caucus. And everybody has moved to New Hampshire. To a large extent, nothing has really changed. Now, yesterday, or not yesterday, 2 days ago, we had experts that we spoke to, Dave Weigel, Bobby Bigwheel, and they were telling us that, look, the actual number of delegates, not that big of a deal with Iowa because there's just not that many. It's a fraction of what you'll ultimately need. It's all about momentum and the narrative that comes out of it. And there are clearly, there's a couple of narratives that come out of it. One is Joe Biden lost big time. I've got a story here in my packet of donors saying, like, this is not what I anticipated. And everybody's going to hold off on giving him money until see how he performs in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is make or break for Joe Biden. Because if he comes in third or fourth in New Hampshire, he's going to flag in Well, he's certainly not going to do so well in Nevada. And then he's going to go kaput in South Carolina. Because if he comes in second in South Carolina, forget it. Even if it's a close first in South Carolina, he's in big trouble. As for the narrative as to who won, well, we've told you there are multiple metrics that are used in the Iowa caucus. One is they are now reporting what the first popular vote was. Then they give you the realignment, and then they give you the delegates that were awarded as a function of the realignment. And even poor Steve Kornacki can't believe how messed up this is. Now, I think there's a very good argument that, like, you know, if you're going to get only 71% of the votes in by Wednesday, that maybe you should just wait till Thursday. But what are they going to do? I mean, if the Iowa Democratic Party had not been like sort of like doling this out so that there's a new narrative every time, we wouldn't have this problem. And I do think it is a problem on some level. I don't know if they're consciously doing it. I wouldn't want to be sitting in that office with the press going, well, you got to tell us what you have right now. And I find it hard to believe that they'd be in a position where they could say, like, we're only going to take the numbers from these areas and not those areas, and we're going to do this in a conscious level. I mean, it's possible, but here is, you'd think they'd want to help Joe Biden more. Maybe there's just not enough to work with. Here's Steve Kornacki talking about how messed up what is hopefully the last Iowa caucus that we will ever deal with.
There are 3 different categories. They were all just released at once. What you're seeing on your screen right now, this is the state delegate equivalent category. This is, so the numbers you see underneath, 359 for Buttigieg, 334 for Sanders, 243 for Elizabeth Warren. These are state delegate equivalents. Now, remember, there are about 2,100 of these statewide. So Buttigieg with 359, that's accounting for 27%. You can start to do the math of what that accounts for. This is a complicated formula where each precinct in the state is worth a certain number of state delegate equivalents. They work their way up. Notably, let me make sure I saw this right. This is the final product. This is the initial preference. Yes, we have a discrepancy right now. The initial preference when people showed up, remember, these are not final results right now. He said 62% of precincts. We got to see what that exactly accounts for in terms of votes here. But right now, the numbers that the Iowa Democratic Party just released, the initial preference in these precincts, you can see, was Sanders 24, Buttigieg 21, Warren 19, Biden 15. You can see Klobuchar 13. And you can see what happens. Remember, in every precinct, 15% the magic number. So let's show you what happened then. Again, for all these precincts, this is the reallocation. So watch. Remember those numbers? Now watch this. And there you go. Wow. So whoa. Sanders on the second allocation continues to lead much tighter. So how does Sanders lead in the state delegate equivalent? How does Buttigieg lead in the state delegate equivalent if he's not leading on the second allocation? It gets into, and I got to take a look here very closely. Yeah. But my suspicion here, strong suspicion would be
he almost
what we've been
fear.
Talking about. These counties are weighted differently here. The rural counties have a little bit more clout when it comes to the state delegate equivalents. And you can see here, Buttigieg in dark blue. These are rural counties. Sanders purple. College County. Watch, 52% for Sanders here. These counties lose influence, lose clout in the state delegates. And so therefore, I think what you're seeing is the clout of the Buttigieg counties in the state delegate equivalent, putting him on top.
All right, so there you have it. So the fact is that in the first round, Bernie Sanders got more votes. And then, of course, there's realignment. You have candidates who don't cross the threshold of 15%, so they go to their second choice. And apparently, even after that, Bernie Sanders got more votes. But because Pete Buttigieg got them in counties that have, for whatever reason, I'm not sure what the formula is.
It's like the Electoral College, right?
It is like the Electoral College.
And may we say that a lot of people who've been making the sort of, I think it's at this point, unhelpful point, frankly, because we live in the world as it is, but very accurate point after Trump won to keep reminding people that Hillary Clinton got over 3 million more votes. There's a contingent of people that I wonder if they'll be sort of beating their chests about how Bernie got more votes. I mean, the bottom line is each vote should be a vote. If we're counting it that way, in the proper democratic way that people have been bleeding about the last couple of years, clear win for Bernie Sanders.
Well, I mean, we don't know that because we don't even know the totals yet. I mean, it could be an even clearer win, or he may not end up with with more votes. Right now, he has 4,000 more votes, but this is in the first round. In the second round, about 1,300 more votes. So the bottom line is, Buttigieg and Sanders are coming out as the victors here. Buttigieg, if only because nobody anticipated him coming in second. Mm-hmm. And so it's a victory because of that narrative, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah. But even if Buttigieg ekes out a win here, I think we should remember the role that the second round plays here, because he's combining everybody who initially went for Klobuchar, everyone who initially went for Biden in some of those places. And even that might not be enough to put him over the top of Sanders.
That's right. I mean, that's true.
With all of these dregs.
That's true. But nevertheless, even if you put that aside, he got 21% of the, almost 21.5% of the vote. He came in second, which is a win for him.
It's the Rubio. I mean, this state, he performed well.
And so, the thing is that I think once you get to Nevada and South Carolina, Buttigieg has a problem, but who knows how much momentum he will get going up to that point, going into Super Tuesday. We don't know, folks.
We can only look forward to Bernie making fun of how he drinks water.
Exactly. So, Pete.
Never seen a guy drink so much. He's a young guy. He's thirsty all the time. It's bizarre.
Why are your shoes so small?
I think we all know what that means.
We know what that means.
I would be fine with having Mayor Pete be the primary adversary here.
That would be preferable.
I mean, I think ultimately it's the problem that they're going to have. You start to hear people freaking out about Joe Biden, and they're starting to look to Bloomberg, and they're also starting to look back to Klobuchar and to Buttigieg, and that bodes well. But also today, obviously, impeachment, and we will cover some of that. The trial, the final vote will happen around 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, and it's pretty clear what's happening. There's a lot of people who say that the vote that we're going to be talking about when we talk to Dr. Rob Davidson, that's taking place in the House tomorrow, could very well have as much implications as I think that witness vote will have for senators who are on the cusp in these purple states, because they're going to have to vote to cut Medicaid, and that could be a problem for them. But we will talk about that in a moment. Let me just remind you, it's a new year. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. But it is time to get comfortable with new bedding. And now Brooklinen also has loungewear, towels, more. It's the home of the internet's favorite sheets. Brooklinen has over 50,000 five-star reviews and counting. I have told you folks ad nauseum about my Brooklinen sheets. I get the crisp, cool cotton ones. I have multiple sets of Brooklinen sheets. I love them. They're incredibly comfortable, and they're going to last me. I don't know if they're going to last a lifetime, but I'm at that age where it's very possible. And I just got I got a new down comforter. I got the lightweight version. I get too hot, folks. And I got of course, the hyperallergenic one. I didn't get the actual down one. I got what are you going to do? But I love it. It's great. No. Exactly. And I don't have that problem anymore. Brooklyn is a direct-to-consumer bedding company, meaning they just work directly with manufacturers and then directly with customers. There's no middlemen. It's just a great product and service. Brooklinen offers other essentials like towels, shower curtains, bath mats, and even launched an ultra-soft loungewear that makes you feel like you never left bed. Like Sunday, like T-shirts, that type of thing. Does that make sense, everybody? On a Sunday, you wake up, you get those T-shirts? All right. They look good. I think I'm going for one of those. You get all luxury products without the luxury markup. If you like softness, comfort, essentials to help you relax, Brooklinen has it all. Brooklinen.com. Perfect place to hit refresh on the new year. Go on. Make yourself comfortable. Brooklinen is so confident in their product that all their sheets, all their comforters, and towels come with a lifetime warranty. You can get 10% off your first order and free shipping on all the new sheets when you use the promo code MAJORITY only at brooklinen.com. That's Brooklinen, BROOKLINEN.com. Enter the code MAJORITY. Brooklinen, everything you need to live your most comfortable life. Also sponsoring the program today, Capterra. If you need to find software, but you have other things to do, like every other human being in the world, things you'd probably rather be doing, cut to the chase with Capterra. It's a website that millions of people use monthly to find software for their team or their business. It is Capterra is completely free. It's an online resource. They simplify your software search in just a few steps. First, you use their free resources and guides to pinpoint the problem and identify the software features you need. Then you can filter options to find the right software for your industry. There are more than 700 specific categories of software. Then you can compare them side by side, save your favorites to a short list. And they have free in-depth software guides and tools, plus over 1 million reviews from actual users. Capterra gives you access to everything you need to know before you buy. You can spend less time trying to find software and more time doing what you do best. Not only do I enjoy just browsing through Capterra just to find out all the different businesses that exist, I've been using this as a way to come up with ideas for features for our app. I mean, I don't think that's what this is meant for, but I'm looking through it and then I see stuff like, I don't know. I mean, polling. They have online polling stuff. They have legal research software. They have library automation software, license management software, live streaming software, loan origination software. If we want to get into the financial, we want to financialize the majority report. There's tons of this stuff. Visit Capterra.com/majority for free today to find the software tools you need for your business. Go there even if you don't think you need it, because you may be surprised to find out what they have. And they're not selling you anything. They're just giving you opportunity to look at real reviews of these softwares. Capterra.com/majority. Capterra, that's Capterra.com/majority. Capterra, software selection simplified. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, you know that I am a little bit frugal, as they say. Well, you know that Honey is the free online shopping tool that automatically finds the best promo codes and then applies them to your cart. No more sitting Mila down, telling her she's got to search for coupon codes every time she wants to buy anything from any one of these nutso stores that she's looking at. I don't even want to talk about it. And look, saving with Honey feels even better than great. Feels like boarding a plane and realizing you have an entire row to yourself. It's a freebie. It's not just you get a discount, but it's a free discount. You don't have to look for it. It's just all of a sudden it shows up. Honey has found over 18 million members, over $2 billion in savings. That's a lot of money, unless, of course, you're Michael Bloomberg. Plus, Honey supports over 30,000 stores online, including Macy's, Target, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. They're adding more stores every day. You know users love Honey since it has over 100,000 five-star reviews on the Google Chrome store. When I go, Mila's always doing some like online shopping or browsing. She's 14. That's what she does. And it used to be I would make her go and Google for a coupon code, because I'm like, there's always a coupon code. And now they've shut those down. It makes it much harder. Honey, boom. Using Honey feels pretty great. You can think of it as a little daily victory. Plus, it's free to use and installs in just a few seconds. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/majority. That's joinhoney.com/majority. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Dr. Rob Davidson. We saw a video of him questioning Mike Pence on the Medicaid cuts. that are coming, that are being proposed and executed by the Trump administration that we're going to see in, I think, just exclusively Republican states, knock on wood. And we will talk about those and more. Dr. Rob Davidson, the executive director of the Committee to Protect Medicare and the ACA. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report on the phone. It is a pleasure to welcome to the program Dr. Rob Davidson. He is an emergency physician in West Michigan, and he is the executive director of the Committee to Protect Medicare. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Sam.
So just to place you, so that, and I think you know this, but so that folks know how we found you, it was from this video. You were in a diner eating, and Mike Pence walks in. Let's just play a quick clip of this.
I'm an emergency doctor. I'm worried about plans they talked about last week of maybe cutting Medicare, and then the rollout today of cutting Medicaid. I work in one of the poorest counties in Michigan, and my patients depend on expanded Medicaid. So how is that going to affect my patients?
I hadn't heard about cutting Medicaid.
Cutting Medicaid, yeah.
Okay. I think people remember we played this the other day. So now, do you do this often when you run into vice presidents?
Yeah, every time I've run into a vice president, I have questioned him about health care. So yes, 100% of the time.
That was pretty stunning. I mean, I guess we'll circle back around because I want to get a sense of, your experience of that conversation. But tell folks what has happened in terms of Medicaid in particular. I guess let's start the way you did. What are the proposed cuts to Medicare that the Trump administration has been talking about?
I mean, the proposed cuts to Medicare, I think it started with their rollout of increased privatization of Medicare with increasing Medicare Advantage plans. That was, I think, October last year in the lakes in Florida. Trump, reported in Vanity Fair that he said it would be a fun second-term project to cut Medicare. And then I think a couple weeks ago now in Davos, Switzerland, he was talking on CNBC, and he said, yes, in fact, that would be on the table, cutting Medicare and or Social Security, and he said that would be the easiest thing to do. Very strange choice of words. So that's kind of the Medicare piece, and that's what I started with. That's why I was in Des Moines that day with the Committee to Protect Medicare, talking about these possible Medicare cuts with doctors from Iowa that joined me for a press conference. One member of the press showed up for that press conference. Now a little bit more of the press is listening to the alarm that we're calling out at my committee about these proposed cuts. And then, because of the news of the day, last Thursday was the day this encounter occurred, and that was the day that Seema Verma, the CMS administrator for Trump, rolled out this block grant waiver proposal that, everyone I can see that is talking about this in an honest way tells us this will in fact cut folks from Medicaid.
Okay, and so tell us, and CMS is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. When they roll out this proposal, are they actually just basically introducing? They're basically announcing that you as a state can apply for a waiver. Is that right?
Right. Apply for a waiver. Currently, Medicaid is funded by the federal government on a kind of a per person, per need basis. So, for instance, when there's a recession and more people lose jobs and more people qualify for Medicaid, the federal share of spending on health care for those folks will go up because, of course, they need that. People with diabetes, if they have a job or they lose their job through no fault of their own, still have diabetes. They still need $300 a month insulin. So with the block grant, states could say, listen, why don't you just give us a lump sum of money and then let us, and the word he used was innovate. Let us innovate and figure out how to cover everyone. But, if the needs go up in our state, we still get that pot of money that you're giving us. It doesn't change. And yet our needs go up, so more people lose out. The other thing they can do is choose to cut certain services. They can, cut certain drugs that are currently covered for prescription drug benefit under Medicaid. So, it is a cut. There's no way around it. And there's no way that Pence didn't understand that. Seema Verma used to be his Medicaid administrator in the state of Indiana when he was governor there. So this has been a conservative dream for ages, decades.
30 years they've been trying. They've been trying to block grant, and so there's like you say, there's multiple problems that come with the block granting. One is that it does not act as that economic stabilizer. In other words, it doesn't basically expand as the need gets greater in crises. It also does not increase along with the cost of medicine. And like you say, the states can get sort of clever because the federal government has basically said, this is the difference between just sort of, me giving $10 to my kid and saying, do whatever you want with it, as opposed to making sure that she spends it on, not on junk food or whatever it is.
Right.
And she can then go out and basically, spend $5 on I don't want to kid this metaphor too much, but the idea is that they can use this money in other ways that really don't have anything to do with providing health insurance for people.
Right. And my governor is Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who gave I thought an amazing response to the State of the Union last night. And I was there and we talked beforehand, and she helped us usher in expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act when she was the minority leader of the state Senate here in Michigan, and got a Republican governor to expand Medicaid. And we've had, nearly 750,000 folks in Michigan benefit from that. Their study, I think Kaiser Family reported it recently, specifically on Michigan, showing the economic benefit of expanded Medicaid. The fear was that the federal government was going to give them 100% in the first year and then scale it back to, I think, 90% eventually by next year. And the reality is, even though the federal share has scaled back because people are healthier, because they can afford treating their chronic illnesses, they can work more, the actual tax base has increased. I think 30,000 jobs in Michigan created directly as a result of expanded Medicaid. So, this is, it just doesn't make sense to me that they try. And I think that's why he dodged the question and tried to revert back to things he did and then eventually just said agree to disagree, because he knows what it is. They all know what it is. And they know if they say what it is, people won't like it. It's an election year. They're trying to get reelected. So they just say whatever they want. They lie at will. And the State of the Union was, full of healthcare lies again about every other aspect of healthcare. And, I think they just say what they want and they get away with it. He just wasn't expecting to meet up with a guy in a diner who, again, I don't know this issue like a policy wonk. I have a biology degree and a medical degree, and I work clinically as a doc, but I read, and I try to learn as much as I can. And so, with my limited understanding of these policies, he wasn't ready for that. No one briefed him, no one gave him talking points, and I think that's what we saw unfold.
Yeah, he did look like a deer in the headlights, and we did try and dance around it quite a bit. You zeroed in on him pretty quickly, I think, as he tried to sort of pretend like he didn't understand what you said. And, you know, the first thing, just in that first exchange where you said, you're going to get cuts in Medicaid, and he goes, I don't think we're going to do cuts in Medicare. And so give us, I mean, so you know firsthand the implications of this expanded Medicaid, and I want to get into that as just your experience as an emergency doctor, but I also get the sense. I mean, you're on this. You're executive director of this committee. You're in Iowa, so you're aware at least of some of the broader politics involved in this. Where would you anticipate what states, or at least, if not specific ones, then the profile of the states that are going to be applying for this waiver? I mean, presumably the 13 states, I think it is now, that did not expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, I would imagine would be prime targets or prime applicants to get this waiver, because they're going to continue. If they weren't going to expand Medicaid, they certainly are interested in dismantling it as much as they can.
Right. I think that, and I think, anywhere that there is a Republican, and I guess I have to, I don't know the nuances of the directive, if it's an executive decision at the state level or if it requires, something passing through their houses. But we have enough, majority Republican state legislatures plus governorships in this country that, I think that would be the profile, certainly, because those would be the places where, folks are more likely to be in charge that share Vice President Pence's views on Medicaid in general and whether or not we should be helping out poor people when it comes to health care. That's the fear.
Now,
and why should we in Michigan, have a different set of, the whole healthcare system is so patchwork and hodgepodge, if you want to call it a system. Obviously, it's a series of systems, but it's so patchwork anyways. I guess why should this be any different? Let's let certain states do one thing and others do the other. And if you just happen to be born in Michigan versus Alabama, well, good on you.
Right. Well, there's so much in our society today that's determined that way. It's all just a coin toss, and I guess maybe a bunch of coins that get tossed in the air. Now, there's a vote tomorrow in the House. I imagine you're familiar with it, and what the vote is it's under the CRA, which has been used in the past the Congressional Review Act. It's been used in the past to undo executive actions that have been done within a certain time frame, and the Republicans did this with a bunch of executive actions by Obama. And then once they do that, once they pass that, to reinstitute any type of rule like that, Congress has to authorize it with a 2/3 vote. So this is a sledgehammer, as it were. And they're gonna vote on this in the House, and they will probably pass it, which would not allow the president to block grant. But then it goes to the Senate, and the Republicans are sure to shoot it down. How do you think this plays as an issue in the fall, when you have a half dozen or so Republican senators running in sort of purplish states on their refusal, their essential, voting to allow for cuts in Medicaid?
Right. Yeah, and I'm kind of anxious to see what folks like Collins. She's the only one in the purple state that I think might go along with this. I think Tillis and McSally and who is it? Gardner, I think, is already toast. Maybe Joni Ernst. I don't know. I think they're at least. The thing is, have them go on record. I think that's all. That's what we're trying to do as a committee. What we're rolling out over the next several months is an accountability campaign, and that's really all it is. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I'm not going to tell you to vote for, Bernie or Biden or Buttigieg or any of them. I'm not going to tell you to vote for or against Donald Trump. I just want you to know what exactly they're doing. That is the point of what we're doing. We're saying, hey, doctors, what's going on at the bedside. Let's tell people what's going on. So at least this vote, forcing a vote in the Senate, people will know what's going on. So when any of these Republican senators have to go out and talk to their constituents, it'll be front and center that, This person voted to allow the administration to take health care away from people, 70 million people in this country. So I say, bravo, if that's a tool that they have. I'm not familiar with all the machinations of Congress, but that if that CRA is a tool they have that will force McConnell, because, the H.R. 3 named after Elijah Cummings for prescription drug prices, that is dead in the Senate, even though that was a bipartisan bill passed in the House to keep down prescription drug prices. So at least for once, they can make Mitch McConnell take it up and make people go on record. I think
that's right. It's a privileged motion when it gets to the Senate. So the minority, in rare instances, the minority in the Senate can actually force a vote, and this is one of those rare instances. So tell us, just from your experience as an emergency doctor, what difference it made to expand Medicaid in Michigan. And we should just tell people that the ACA expanded Medicaid if states took it, because the Supreme Court said it can't be forced on people to expand this federal program in a very weird decision. Right. Went from 100% of poverty to the 138% of poverty, became eligible for expanded Medicaid. What did you see as a doctor in the wake of that expansion?
I mean, I can, it's hard to say on a person-for-person basis because you don't really have a discussion of someone. I don't ask them what they have unless they tell me, hey, I'm worried about costs. I have a high deductible plan. What do we, can we figure this out? So it's not a front and center discussion. Hey, you have Medicaid. Did you not have Medicaid? And how does that affect your life?
Right.
We know from a population basis, A, in the state, and B, in my county and in the population we serve at my hospital, that more people had insurance than had it before. So I can just tell you stories of patients who I would see historically who come in with a blood pressure of 200 over 100. That's high. And not suffering from that at all. They may be there with an ankle sprain, and we check their vitals and we say, hey, you got high blood pressure. Maybe we should put you on something. Okay, we need you to follow up with somebody. Here, why don't you try to go see this person? Well, they don't have any insurance, so they can't go see that person. They get a month or two worth of blood pressure meds. You see them again a few years later, and their blood pressure is 200 over 100, and they're still doing okay. But the problem is if that happens enough, 20 years from now, they're the ones having strokes and kidney failure and heart attacks. And so for those folks, it's critical. People with diabetes, people with hypertension, maybe less so the ER population and the ER visits, because eventually most people will come in with chest pain or shortness of breath or stroke symptoms, whether or not they have insurance, and then deal with the bankruptcy later. But it's those folks with the chronic conditions, and I think diabetes is such a key one because of the cost of insulin, that when they couldn't afford it previously and just let it go, because mostly diabetes is a silent disease, it's a silent killer, that the major ramifications happen, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. So if you're 40 with diabetes and you feel okay, it's not on the top of your list. You're just trying to go work and pay your bills. Those folks who then qualified, this is a lifesaver, and I told them, I said, it's a godsend or, a lifeline or whatever you want to call it. But it is literally a life-changing event to have some kind of coverage. Coverage under Medicaid is a little skinnier than coverage under other plans. And that's, whether that's okay or not is a whole different discussion. But, oh, my Lord, it is some coverage. It is the ability to see a doctor, the ability to get insulin, to treat the chronic disease, keep them out of the ER and the ICU, save money, they work more. It's crazy to me that, the mantra of people like, Mike Pence, Paul Ryan, pull yourself up from your bootstraps, the kind of Atlas Shrugged carrying crowd that say pull yourself up from your bootstraps, and they say, but we don't want to help you actually do that, the long-term thinking of investing in someone's healthcare now, so 20 years from now they're still productive members of society, just doesn't exist. Their lives exist on 2, 4, and 6-year election cycles. And it really hurts the ability of folks like me, my wife's a family practice doctor, and folks like her to do our jobs, because these guys are thinking about the next election and who's giving them contributions to get reelected.
It's fascinating that in the way you put it in terms of the implications 20 years down the road, because we've seen in the wake of the expansion of Medicaid, varying different reports that give sort of a mixed outlook, if you will, as to the implications of it. But if I hear you correctly, 20 years down the road, we should see an improvement in the overall health outcomes or health status of, that population of people who were living for at least some time between 100% and 138% of poverty or so.
Yeah, and again, in the short term, we have seen the economic benefit to a state like Michigan with 30,000 jobs created that they can attribute to expansion. More people have insurance. They need to see folks. They have greater need for healthcare, so there's more healthcare out there to be had, for consumers to have. And then again, those people are missing less days of work. They're making more. They're contributing more, and that helps the overall tax base of the state as well. So. It seems like a no-brainer. Again, all we can do is point out the truth of it and what our committee is doing. Just to get a little plug, committee2protect.org if people want to learn more about it. But what the committee is doing is taking doctors to say, hey, you've been doing this at the bedside forever. Why don't you step out and speak out and tell people? And, I see a lot of docs have commented on the Twitter video. And we're trying to get through those and reply saying, hey, good job, way to go, way to represent. It's like, hey, join us,
Right.
It isn't that hard. It rarely involves talking to the vice president. It mostly involves, writing an op-ed or doing a video or, some other form of action where you can advocate for your patients. So hopefully that helps.
What is your perspective on Medicare for All? And I'm curious as to what your sense is as to your fellow doctors' perspective on that.
Yeah, there's actually polling now. Kaiser Family Foundation, I think it's 51% of physicians now support a type of plan like Medicare for All. Listen, I'm a supporter. I know that if we had no system in place in this country, then Medicare for All makes 100% sense. It's the only system that does make sense. We pay, and you know all the stats, and I'm sure you've had people talk about it. We pay twice as much per person for healthcare as most other countries. We have lower life expectancy. We have higher infant mortality. And we have, roughly 2/3 of bankruptcies attributable to medical debt. So that wouldn't be there, and we'd spend less overall, and we get better outcomes. Now, I'm a realist, and I understand the system we have. And so politically, I think it's tough. I think if a Medicare for All candidate wins the nomination and wins the presidency, no matter how much they want to say, well, if we just work really hard and organize well, we can get this through right now. Like, you still need 60 votes in the Senate for this. So I don't think it's going to pass on a 51-vote budget resolution because of the sheer increase in spending. So I am a supporter 100%. However, anything someone can do to increase the ability for my patients to afford health care, I say bring it on. My senator in Michigan has proposed a Medicare over 55 buy-in. Absolutely. Adam Schatz in Hawaii has proposed a Medicaid buy-in program. Yes, do that. All of these programs, public option, absolutely. I think eventually things like public option and all will roll into people all kind of saying, hey, this is a better option. I'm going to choose that. I know the Center for American Progress put out a Medicare, I believe, Medicare Extra plan, which was sort of a buy-in option for employers and employees into the Medicare system. And then every new child gets rolled into Medicare. So 65 years from now, it's Medicare for All, just by virtue of time. That's probably a little long, but again, anything that helps expand healthcare, I think, is a good thing, and we shouldn't, cut off our nose to spite our face or sacrifice the good for the sake of the perfect. What I do know is the current administration is going the other way. That's what people need to understand. When you talk to other doctors who don't support that as an end goal, right, regardless of how you get there or whatnot, what is their rationale? Is it just simply like they're afraid they're not going to make as much money? I have to be honest. I think that's a lot of it. Yeah, I think that's most of it. The AMA might get mad at me, although they did come out against this block granting. And other professional societies may get mad at me for saying this publicly, but we kind of know that. But I think the reason you're seeing more physicians supporting sort of a more public investment in healthcare rather than keeping it completely private is that we have a real shift in the way doctors, the makeup of the profession, a lot more women, a lot more people of color than there were, 10, 20, 30 years ago. The other reality is many more doctors now are employees, so they work for an entity. They work for a hospital system or a large group kind of practice. So they're not, just sort of small business owners out there only worried about kind of what they're bringing in. You know, they're more saying, hey, I'm getting paid X, and I'm trying to just do my job and take care of people, and I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall dealing with denials of coverage. I had a friend that works with me on this committee, and it was just an aside. He said he got a prescription prescribed by his doctor. It was on the formulary. In the 2 days it took him to get to the pharmacy to pick it up, it was taken off of the formulary. It was supposed to be $20, and he got there and they said that'll be $682.
Oh, jeez.
2 days. So his wife got on the phone, called around, and found him a discount program somewhere else where he could get it for like $50. But again, it's like that kind of madness that makes us as doctors, I mean, it adds to our workload. It adds the number of people we need out there pushing papers. It doesn't make any sense. And I think you're seeing a shift in doctors, you know, mostly for those reasons. The money piece of it is sort of less front and center. It's more about the service we can provide to our patients.
Well, we undoubtedly have a lot of doctors who listen to this program. And if they want to get involved in the Committee to Protect Medicare, what should they do?
I think probably the quickest way is to go to committeetoprotect.org, and they can sign up on there, send a message. It'll get to our general email. You know, we get that. We'll get back in touch with people. And then, you know, mostly it's things. I mean, if people go to our Facebook or Twitter, they'll see me doing social videos about certain issues. I did a response to the State of the Union last night in real time. And, you know, that's what people can do. They can just tell their stories. Tell us about your patients and tell us about, you know, how the current policies of the administration or the proposed cuts will impact your patients. You know, it's easier to identify groups of doctors rather than groups of patients to try to advocate. And frankly, most of our patients are just out there trying to work and trying to figure out how to take care of themselves. So, committeetoprotect.org, and we'll be happy to sign you up and get you involved and start advocating right away.
Dr. Rob Davidson, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. It's been great. Have a good day.
Bye-bye. There you go, folks.
Interesting how the conversion of doctors into basically workers rather than business owners has changed their politics.
Yeah, undoubtedly. The sort of the broadening of life experiences has also, coming from communities and I guess stations where they see the implications of this stuff more, being denied health care. And yes, time marches on. Progress, the arc of progress is long, I guess. But
stop butchering me.
Folks, just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can become a member by going to jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the extra content every day. And we're going to start, we're working on some features on the app that are going to be bonuses for members. And we're going to be doing a little bit more bonus video stuff on top of the bonus stuff. It's just, it's so great. So become a member today. Jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, sign up for the AM Quickie. This thing's exploding. amquickie.com. amquickie.com. You get your news briefs done quick in the morning. You can keep track of what's going on. If you miss a day of the show, you'll at least have a sense of where we are with the news and the stories you need to know. amquickie.com. Also available on the app. And let me remind you, Capterra, it's the free online resource that millions use monthly to find the best software solutions for their team or their business. You can pinpoint the problem, filter options to find the right software for your industry. There are more than 700 specific categories of software. That's nuts. Visit capterra.com/majority for free today. Find the software tools you need for your business. Capterra, that's CAPTERRA.com/majority. Capterra, the software selection simplified. Today is Wednesday, which means that yesterday was Tuesday, but Something didn't happen on Tuesday. It's going to happen on Wednesday. Isn't that right, Michael?
Indeed. Tonight, Corey Pine is going to join us to talk about why we need to have a complete and total shutdown on technology until we figure out what the hell is going on.
Hear, hear.
Then we are going to have Emma Vigeland in studio. She is back from Iowa, so we're going to get a ground level perspective. I'm sure say a lot of very negative things about Pete Buttigieg, and talk about a really good column in the New York Times about how on-the-ground journalists in China are working their way around state censors to cover the carnivorous outbreak in a really effective way.
The what?
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Coronavirus.
Corona?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, not carnivorous.
I am totally off on that one. I must have seen I must have seen it first from somebody who spells it like I spell. Coronavirus. Anyways, a whole bunch more. And of course, a David Frum debunk and some clips of his Bhaskar debated him very well on Democracy Now! Patreon.com/TMBS. For Friday, I know general admissions tickets to the Bell House are sold out. I think there's a few VIP tickets left if you want to snag them. And, where's that board when you need it? Where's that board when you need it? Oh. And April 3rd, come see us at the North Door in Austin with Abby Martin and Anna Kasparian. Patreon.com/TMBS.
Jamie.
This week on the Antifada, I feel like I've been out forever. I did not manage to plug this because I was home with the flu, but it's very good. We have a new edition of History as a Weapon with Sean KB and Matt Chrisman, wherein they talk about utopian socialism. You might be saying to yourself, what's that? Well, ever since the rise of class society, people have been envisioning a better world. They talk about some of the various Christian traditions associated with utopian socialism, and how it gave rise to a more scientific form of socialism. And I'm halfway through it right now. It's very good, very interesting, learning a lot from it. That's for our patrons. That's out now. It's a 2-parter. Also, later today, we have a Sean episode coming out wherein he talks with a couple of left communist types that he met on Twitter about the tendency of the rate of profit to fall over time. It's some real Marxist stuff. So check it out. Patreon.com/theantifada.
Matt.
Yeah, check out Old Literary Hangover. If you listen to their episode about utopia,
Did you say Old Literary Hangover?
Yeah, an Old Literary Hangover.
Oh,
episode.
and old. I thought you had changed the name.
It's Ye Old Literary Hangover now. No, but I talked about utopian socialism on the Blythedale Romance episode by Nathaniel Hawthorne. So check that out, folks.
The Blythedale Romance. There you go. See you in the fun half.
Left is best.
Jamie and I may have a disagreement.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want about people just because you're rich.
I have an absolute right to mock them on YouTube.
He's up there buggy whipping like he's the boss.
I am not your employer.
You know, I'm tired of the negativity.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you. You're nervous. You're a little bit upset. You're riled up.
Yeah, maybe you should rethink your defense of that, you fucking idiots.
We're just going to get rid of you.
All right.
But dude. You want to smoke this joint?
Yes.
Do you feel like you are a dinosaur?
That's some good shit.
Exactly. I'm happy now.
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
Oh, hell yeah.
Now listen to me. 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 847-906-501-457. 2, 38, 56, 27. 1/2. 5 8s. 3.9 billion.
Wow.
He's the ultimate math nerd.
Don't you see?
Why don't you get a real job instead of spewing vitriol and hatred, you left-wing Limbaugh?
Everybody's taking their dumb juice today.
Come on, Sammy.
Dance.
Ooh.
Rand Paul. I had my
my first post-coital scene with a woman. I'm hoping to add more moves to my repertoire. All I have is the dip and the swirl.
Fine, we can double dip.
Yes, this is a perfect moment.
No.
Wait, what?
You make under $1 million a year. You're scum. You're nothing.
Excuse me? Fuck you, you fucking liberal elite. I think you belong in jail.
Thank you for saying that, Sam. You're a horrible, despicable person.
All right, gonna take a quick break. I want to take a moment to talk to some of the libertarians out there. Take whatever vehicle you want to drive to the library. What you're talking about is jibber jabber.
Classic. I'm feeling more chill already.
Good. Donald Trump can kiss all of our asses.
Hey, Sam. Hey, Andy. You guys ready to do some evil?
Hitler was such an idiot.
That guy might be a Nazi.
Agreed.
No.
Death to America.
You.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow, that's weird. No way! Unbelievable. This guy's got a really good hook. Throw our hands up.
Ooh.
Wow.
But Sam, I gotta get off.
No worries. Let's. I want to just flesh this out a little bit. I mean, look, it's a free speech issue. If you don't like me,
Hey, shut up!
Thank you for calling into the Majority Report. Sam will be with you shortly.
It's the fun half, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take some IMs today. I've been very, very, what is the word I'm looking for? Remiss in how I have been treating the IMs. So let's get right to it. Gregory from Oklahoma. Hey, y'all. Today is my 22nd birthday. Today it snowed, so I got to stay home from school and work. Today's been a good day. Please check out my show, The Green Corn Rebellion Show, on YouTube. And please become a patron, and I'll give you one of these.
Happy birthday, Gregory.
From Oklahoma.
I hope it's full of new metal and good times.
There you go. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. Let's get to this. Donald Trump gave an impeachment speech, a State of the Union speech last night, and it was largely as I predicted. No, he wasn't petty. I would say if there was any theme in the speech, well, there was a couple, but he was trying to be above the fray. There was really basically two elements to the speech, two or three. One was they are on a concerted campaign to either, you can look at it both ways, probably both, pick up some votes from the black community and perhaps maybe just make some people say, I'm not going to show up. Now, I think this is a concerted effort. There's a lot of ads that they're running. They ran a Super Bowl ad that was, featured a mom whose child was imprisoned, wrongly, I think. And she came out, African-American woman. The ad, I think, had her saying multiple times, "Thank you, President Trump."
Wait. She was pardoned.
Oh, she was?
Son. It was her.
No, it wasn't her daughter that was pardoned? Wasn't it the mom who was saying that?
The one I saw was the woman in Alabama who he pardoned personally.
Oh, okay. And she came out and said, I thought it was her daughter that she was saying this for. But regardless, and we have the story in Politico of a charitable organization essentially going around to inner cities in Ohio and Michigan and plans maybe to other places, holding raffles in Trump rallies, basically giving out money. And there's only so many people you need to give out money to before people say, like, I'm not going to go out and vote against the guy. Maybe I'll actually vote for him.
Is this actually going to work, though? Like, black voters voted for Trump the least.
Well, that's correct, but they also stayed at home in certain cities in regards to Clinton, and you don't need many people when we're talking about the margins that we're going to be talking about. So I think it's a smart strategy, and I think it's I don't know if it's going to work, but it could. And the other aspect of the State of the Union that was prominent was the whole sort of check under your seat. There's a check for $20 million. Like he literally gave out money to specific individuals or their favored programs that night and made the announcement. And he did he brought back I don't know if he was an armyman or a serviceman, essentially. I don't know if he was a Marine or
the Tuskegee Airmen? Or
No, the guy he brought back
to see the family. Like, have we got a surprise for you, Johnny?
Have we got a surprise for you, Katie? Your husband's back from Iraq.
Johnny, why don't you show him what's behind curtain number 3? And then the other thing that was the feature of the. There you go.
Welcome, everybody. It's the State of the Union.
The other feature of the night was a litany of lies. Here is the first one. Donald Trump saying that, talking about food stamps. Clip number 2.
Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare.
Not the case. According to the Washington Post, about 4.2 million people have stopped receiving food stamps since February of 2017, in part because the economy has gotten better. It was getting better, obviously, under Obama. We've all seen those graphs. It's basically on the same trajectory as it was before, but also because several states have basically rolled back recession-era waivers that have allowed adults to keep their benefits for longer time without being unemployment. You can put that back up, that SNAP, because it basically tightens work requirements. So once the waivers get rescinded, they put work requirements on there, and less people are eligible. And they're, of course, attempting to cut even more. So that is a lie on its face, on its own terms, and then also nothing to brag about if you think that people should get food stamps. Now, if you think no one should get any type of nutritional support, kids, adults, sorry, can't afford to eat, you don't eat. If that is your agenda, then yes, you brag about that. But presumably, it's not. Presumably.
I remember always that Newt Gingrich called Barack Obama the food stamp president.
Yeah, we've heard some pretty naked rhetoric from Republicans along those lines.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think they should probably, they should have sort of chyron that underneath when Trump was saying that. I agree. Let's go to this next one. This is Donald Trump talking about protecting pre-existing conditions.
I've also made an ironclad pledge to American families. We will always protect patients with pre-existing conditions.
Okay, they seem to be very happy about this. Now, here's the thing. There is some wiggle room here because we don't know what he means by protect patients with pre-existing conditions. Many of you probably heard we're going to protect people who want to get health care with pre-existing conditions by forcing health insurance companies, as we do now under the Affordable Care Act, to accept them and not charge them higher rates because of the pre-existing conditions. Maybe that's what you heard. But if that's what you heard, I don't think that's what he meant, because right now, right this very second, and certainly during the seconds in which he said those words and the seconds in which Stephen Miller wrote them, or whoever wrote those words for him, the Trump administration, via the Department of Justice, is supporting a lawsuit by, I think it's about a dozen states, maybe a half a dozen states, to strike down the Affordable Care Act in the Texas v. U.S. Act. So in other words, the DOJ is actually working on the side of the people who are challenging the law. And it essentially is challenging the individual mandate as being unconstitutional. And the question is whether the rest of the law is severable. And they are arguing that it's not. So in other words, if the individual mandate is unconstitutional, then the whole law has to go down. In which case you would lose protections for those people who have pre-existing conditions in terms of their capacity to buy health insurance. So I think what we rate this on our fact check is lie. That's our lie sound for now. One more. Oh, and here's another. This is not so much a lie. Well, I guess it is a lie. Oh, what's that one?
This is 100,000 high-paying jobs from the USMCA.
Oh, yeah, we could do that. We could do that one.
Six days ago, I replaced NAFTA and signed the brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement into law. The USMCA will create nearly 100,000 new high-paying American auto jobs and massively boost exports for our farmers, ranchers, and factory workers.
Okay. That job, 100,000 high-paying auto, that figure can be found in no document. No document that's been put out by the supporters of that trade agreement. No document that's put out by the people who are against that trade agreement. No document. No one has put out that figure.
Just give me
the highest figure number that anybody I've seen put out is somewhere around like 40 to 50,000. You double it.
You round it up a little bit.
You round it up to the nearest 100,000. Yeah. So 3 jobs, 100,000.
Exactly. Oh, God.
So lastly, we have one more lie. One more lie from, and there's plenty more, but we just, we need to move on.
There has to be some.
I have a lie I've identified.
Well, here is a lie that, there was one more lie, and it was not just gross insofar as, Rush Limbaugh's a disgusting human being. Now, I'm not saying that in terms of like the way he looks, although he looks sort of disgusting.
That's how I'm saying.
I'm not saying it in terms of the way that he acts in a personal manner. I don't know. I don't think it's disgusting to have had as many marriages as he had. A lot of people I know have had that many marriages. Of course, the damage that he's done to this country, I don't know if we can actually quantify in a real way. Starting with the development of the theory that the Clintons murdered Vince Foster, the racism, the sexism that he has promulgated, the horror show that he has created in terms of right-wing talk radio. I mean, go on and on. And I don't know that he's on his deathbed yet. Hope springs eternal. But he was awarded, what was he awarded? The Medal of Freedom last night? I don't even know who else was on this list. I think if I knew, it would make me sick. But look how surprised Rush Limbaugh is. He knew he was invited to the State of the Union, but look how surprised he is about to receive this award.
Of the incredible work that you have done for charity, I am proud to announce tonight that you will be receiving our country's highest civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Look how surprised he looks. What? What's going on? I don't know where I am. Oh, is my mouth agape? I can't believe it. What? Me? Wait a second. Me? Let me check with you on the right. Is this really me? Oh my God, I'm so surprised.
I'm incredibly high on pills.
I had no idea. I just don't believe it.
I'd like to thank him for his development work in the Dominican Republic and helping a lot of
I
people.
will now ask the First Lady of the United States
This
to
is how you
present
react when you first
with the
find
honor,
out,
please.
apparently, that you're getting this medal. And
I am
he
now
looks over,
sharing
what? Are they
the-
really? Are they going to put it on me now? Oh my God! I can't believe
The
it.
First Lady will now
I'm
give him the ritual hand job, which is always conferred.
I don't believe it. I am so surprised. So surprised. There's Rush Limbaugh, shocked. And who would not be shocked if you were sitting at the State of the Union and did not know? But unfortunately, no, here's Politico. Let's do Politico first. Politico. Trump to award Presidential Medal of Freedom to Rush Limbaugh. And this was printed at 5:53, like 3 or 4 hours before. Now, I know it's possible. Limbaugh go like, I don't read Politico. Nobody I know reads Politico. Nobody would have ever told me if they had seen it in Politico because I don't have anybody in my orbit who reads Politico.
Politicon.
However, Breitbart, well, yes, Breitbart, Trump to award Rush Limbaugh with Medal of Freedom, which was also printed that day, half hour later. So the idea that he didn't know is, of course, absurd. He was just faking it to make it seem like he was humble and hadn't,
It's like a
the whole thing had been,
teenager.
well, the whole thing is being orchestrated. I mean,
Embarrassing.
look, that's what he's a professional propagandist.
And
so,
now to honor a man who has cancer moving faster through his body than he's sinking in the Arbitron ratings, Rush Limbaugh.
now listen, I have been accused of being a left-wing Limbaugh in the past.
Oh, that was a great call.
Right? We've had that call.
Yep.
So let's try it out. Let's see if I can do this.
Hey,
Well,
Sam.
we're just let me get prepared here because you're introducing me on the show. Today is Sam Cedar, and then you go into the medal.
How about we'll do it like this? And now, against my better instincts, I would like to honor Sam Cedar with the Congressional Medal of Freedom. I think you got it. If you could turn around now, Jane is going to drape the medal around your neck.
That's just how you're going to do it, just like that.
That's exactly how I'm going to do it. Boom.
Totally shocked. Jesus Christ.
I hope it's not because I have cancer.
Yes, totally impromptu.
Completely impromptu. Completely impromptu.
Oh, God.
Here we go. Let's go to the IMs. Ryan from Ohio. How about a random rush? I don't think he's on. Right? He's not on. We really dropped the ball with that one. Well, how great would it have been if we got Random Rush and he announced that he had cancer.
So what Rush is doing now is he's saying that he has advanced stage cancer, which is funny. It's one of his better bits. And what he's going to do is he's going to loop that into a lie about the Affordable Care Act.
Right,
okay,
that's
let's
right.
start the clock.
I still got cancer, even though we had health insurance.
So what they want is government bureaucrats, but guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I still have cancer.
There you go.
Think about it.
Chris from Taiwan. I spent a week or two in Iowa knocking on doors. I cannot
overemphasize how easy it is to convince persuadable or unlikely voters to support Bernie. Almost everyone has some kind of problem or struggle that the Sanders platform addresses, whether it's student debt, inadequate health insurance, low wages, etc. We can definitely still win this. The campaign is asking everyone outside the early states to go work in their home states right away, particularly door knocking. Campaign also wants everyone to step up what's called relational organizing, talking to friends, families, neighbors, coworkers. Everyone get after it. Let's do this. Doctor from New Jersey. I second Dr. Rob, except anything worth the paper it's printed on won't get through a Republican Senate. We should not be pre-negotiating. I think that's true. We will see in terms of what the Senate is, but I see what you're saying in terms of like, don't say that you'll accept anything, I guess, ultimately. PDX Tony, Sam, please discuss turnout and Bernie's theory of the case. Well, apparently, and do we have those numbers on turnout? The turnout numbers were better than we had assumed when they had released 50% of the votes. It appears that 2016 was topped, and it did not beat 2008. But Iowa is also a state that is been turning more Republican. And so it is very difficult. It's not an apples to apples a comparison. But in terms of over 2016, more people were turned out. Youth turnout was up something like, 28% or something like that, which, again, I think we're going to have to wait and see what happens in New Hampshire, what happens in South Carolina to get a real sense of this. Sanders' numbers, it's hard to assess. It's really hard to assess with what we saw. He did not overperform his polling, as far as I can tell, in the way that one might hope or anticipate, but we'll see going forward. Apparently in 2016 or 2008, January 3rd is when they had it, and there was more people who take off those first couple of days of the year. There's all sorts of sort of apples to oranges type of comparisons in terms of turnout, but he did not overperform his polling numbers, but we shall see. So I don't know that he proved the theory of the case, but I don't know that the theory of the case was disproved either. Let's put it that way. And certainly we don't have the full numbers yet.
Waiting.
So
that's really, people just need to keep, and Jim Messina coming out on Twitter and saying like, basically we should just leave this all behind. Is disgusting and ridiculous.
Just leave it at 71%.
Just leave it at 71%.
It's really hefty.
This election's going to be incredibly close right now. Passions of the Democratic Party are running at an all-time high. We ought to put Iowa behind us. Says the man, I always have to remind everybody of this, who told David Cameron, you can call a Brexit referendum.
Right.
Do we know what places have yet to report? Are they Bernie places?
My understanding is they are
That's
Bernie,
what I heard,
they
yeah,
are
but
Bernie heavy places.
Like
That's
slightly. It's not a huge discrepancy, but overall generally Bernie.
That's my understanding.
Very suspicious.
We shall see.
It also happens. I mean, part of it is because it's from more populous areas, and apparently it's easier for them to get the rural stuff in. I don't know.
Yeah, and the other things that I'm seeing some shadow. I put in the mix that also, when you break it down, outside of the white population of Iowa, that Bernie is cleaning up.
Yeah, Ryan Grimm told us that on when he called into the program during the night, but we need to see more.
I'm not gonna read that in the mainstream media.
Maybe at the Intercept.
They're not lame.
Oh, okay.
Retcon media.
The Chapo guys said that if the Democrats launched a coup at a contested convention and selected Michael Bloomberg, they would not vote for him, even if he was the nominee. I don't know what coup means. I think there's going to be real problems if I don't know what coup means in that instance.
It's hyperbole.
Can I just?
Well, no, I know it's hyperbole, but that doesn't. This person's asking me, would you vote for Bloomberg? If a coup means that all the other candidates throw their delegates behind Bloomberg and he wins, I don't have as much of a problem with that. If the super delegates come in favor of someone who has less delegates than someone else, I would have a big problem with that. Would I vote for Bloomberg? I mean, look, all those guys live in New York. I live in New York. What I would do is not terribly relevant. I can tell you that if I was in a swing state, I will vote for the Democrat over Donald Trump. Things like tens of thousands of people being thrown off of Medicaid, the potential for cuts of Social Security and Medicare in a second term, what's happening with, children of immigrants, what's happening to the DACA recipients, what's happening to the temporary protected status, what's happening with the ban on immigrants from basically countries where people are not white. I mean, the list goes on and on. And now, do I have a problem with somebody saying right now in New York that they're not going to vote for the nominee? I mean, I think to a certain extent, what they're doing is probably just, more about trying to make a point about the sort of electability arguments that people are, saying like, I don't know if, some segment of population is going to vote for Bernie. And then I think what they're doing is they're saying, well, you should also be aware that there may be another segment of the population that won't vote for Bloomberg.
Let me say this. And this is, maybe another argument that I would prefer to have at another time about legitimacy versus sort of the technicalities of the rules. I think a question that needs to be starting to ask of the candidates, and an IMer gave us this idea, I wish I could remember the IMer's name, is will you support going into the convention the candidate who has the lead delegate count? And that's my view. So I don't know, coup, whatever, technically within the rules, we don't need to use that kind of language. But I and a lot of people would have a huge problem if Bernie, as an example, goes in with a 10-point delegate lead and, Bloomberg cuts a deal to get the nomination. That is a Democratic legitimacy problem, regardless of whether or not it fits in the rules.
It would destroy the party, and it should.
The other real quick point I'd make is I just think that I don't think it's the right time to be affirming what we'll do in a general election. We've got to figure this out right now. I will never be in a position, I'll say this to everybody, I am never going to advocate somebody voting in a swing state in such a way that would allow Donald Trump to return to office. Like, I'm also not going to pretend and play that game, but I'm also not going to be emotionally blackmailed or in a premature conversation when this is at the heights.
Right. I think that's the best answer for I mean, look, I think there's something performative, the Chapo guys are doing. And I think it's illustrative of.
It's illustrative and it's funny.
It's accepting a premise. It's what Brunig was doing. It's accepting the premise about the Bernie bros. It's actually not true.
It's actually, and that's the other thing.
If you follow these people's logic to its own conclusion, then the only responsible choice to nominate is Bernie Sanders.
Right. And I think, look, if people are going to insist upon declarations from people now, like, I mean, I would be hesitant to make any clear declaration in terms of something like that, just because, if I'm bluffing now and I'm going to change my tune after the convention, I'd be hesitant to do that. But I also do think it's perfectly legitimate to say, like, you know what, that's a general election question. And I'll answer that in the general election. But I do think it's far more legitimate to get commitments, like you're saying, from people who are running right now. What are you going to do at the convention? Because this is going to be a function of whether I vote for you. Like, if I'm going to vote for Amy Klobuchar, I want to know how she's going to dispense her delegates.
And that's really, and let me just be really clear about this. This is where I do have some consistency. Like if I would say, look, there's some scenarios where if it's like a photo finish between two candidates, let's say it's Bernie and Bloomberg neck to neck, and somehow Gabbard pushes it over for Bernie, you could argue, okay, that's some type of center-left majority, or vice versa. If it's Bloomberg and Klobuchar, okay. But if any of them have, say, a 10-point or 5-point, any type of clear delegate lead, I want to know that you're going to go for who has the lead delegates, period. No bullshit, no nonsense.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think it's fair to talk about what happens in the general because everyone's rightfully concerned about beating Trump. And, the Chapo thing might be a bit of a joke, but it's not that different from electability arguments that we have been making, which is that the people who support Bernie Sanders might be the softest support in the Democratic Party. So, the people who vote for Biden in the primary are going to vote for whoever the nominee is in the general, whereas the Bernie people might not.
Yeah, I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about the general. I'm saying in terms of making some declaration about your intent to vote for the nominee or not, I think it's, I think it's perfectly legitimate to say, there's not even a point of arguing that right now or talking about it. And, you don't need, there's no reason for voters to have to make some type of, declaration about that right now.
Our voting intent doesn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things.
I think there's value too, though, if you have some type of media platform, frankly, again, if they did that with Bloomberg, I could not with a straight face tell my audience, oh, this is fine. We'll keep fighting the good fight.
But he's gonna do all the same things as Trump. I know we just said not to make declarations, but I will not declare that I would vote for Bloomberg. Let's just put it that way.
In New York, I definitely won't declare that.
Right.
There's a zero chance I would do it.
Well,
in a swing state, fine, but I don't care to.
That's the only relevant part of the conversation.
Talking about it.
In New York, I will not vote for any Democrat besides. In New York, I'm Bernie or bust this cycle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's perfectly legitimate. And it's almost silly not to.
Yes.
Vox Popo. I'm not getting this new Ronald Reagan doctor character. Squints. Love the show. Studying for undergrad in Florida. How should I approach my libertarian poli-sci professor when they argue socialism kills people? Thanks so much. You should tell them to listen to this show and call in.
Watch their back.
Yeah, you want to bring up some examples of how many people capitalism has killed? We'll be here all day.
Right. That's a good point. Everything kills people. Let's put it that way. Louisiana leftist. Nice MSNBC clip talking about how our democracy is a myth. It was really more our meritocracy. Eric, although I could have. That's just a different day. Eric Reisberg, criminally negligent with the IMs. Rosenberg voice. I'm suing you. Dave Hubarb.
My IMs.
February 7th, last day to register for a Democratic mail-in ballot in Colorado. February 7th, folks. You got 2 days. Register for a mail-in ballot. Ayn Rand, Paul Ryan. Hey, has Matt had a New York bagel yet?
I had a Montreal bagel. It was delicious.
Wait, are you seriously not had a New York bagel?
You cosmopolitan.
Are you effing kidding me?
We've talked about this.
Are you specifically not?
I'm a creature of habit.
What'd you do if I brought in a bagel?
I mean, it depends what kind of bagel, but I mean,
What do you mean, what kind of bagel?
And how high
bagel
you
is
were.
like raisin or blueberry or something, I'd probably eat it.
Raisin or wait.
You have the most
You just said
disgusting- They don't
You just
sell
said, hey, if they have.
bagels.
I don't know about
I
bagels.
like how Matt is.
I had a good cinnamon
Matt's
raisin
like,
bagel.
hey, if it's particularly disgusting, I might try it. What about a nice plain bagel or a poppy seed bagel?
Everything bagel.
Do you like cream
perhaps?
cheese?
Not a big cream chease fan.
What
You're
about
gonna
butter?
eat one.
Butter's good.
It's gonna be a
right,
Patreon
I'm
goal.
getting it.
Basically, this does bring us back to the early days of Matt coming in here and being like, you fellas know Jerry Seinfeld.
It's maddening.
I was in New York 2 weeks ago for the first time. I can't imagine why you wouldn't be eating bagels every day if you could.
Well, because you get fat.
Yeah.
Matt doesn't get fat. He eats garbage.
You should eat the bagels.
Actually, it's
Seb
I'm a
Gorka's
little mad. I would eat so many bagels if I could.
Seb Gorka's back pain. Soledad O'Brien has really been freaking out lately. Normally she acts like she's afraid someone's going to come and take her money, but lately she's been acting like Bernie's going to personally shoot all her horses. Wu-Tang Clan, why is no one talking about Trump glitching? He's been doing it almost once a speech, including last night.
Say goodbye to Princess Soledad.
I don't want to go full Hillary Parkinson's here, but he's having some kind of neurological incidents. He covers it up by saying, look, after he loses the word, and he does this weird shoulder jerk. Here's his glitch last night. Do you have that glitch? I remember it, but wait a second. Here's a, let me see if I can get you the, there's something wrong with my browser. It's not like launching stuff. It's weird. Here's the link though. This is, and Wu-Tang Clan says, I am not a crockpot. All right. So look, I think that's what it is. I remember this now. He has had this sort of thing where he does where he went criminal the other day. It's a weird thing. I don't remember him doing these before, but maybe he did. I just don't pay that much attention. But it is seemingly
Mali
happening.
Mali.
The Adderall.
Like a mumblecore rapper.
The state of California passed an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for criminal, illegal.
Welcome to
See, I think what it is that he combined sanctuary state, and he realized it as he got to the A part. Let's play that again. Can we do that again?
I also think maybe dentures, honestly. There's a denture situation going on.
Well, I think he hears himself say stank you, and then he tries to pull back and redo it, but he can't. So
The state of California passed an outrageous law declaring their whole state to be a sanctuary for criminal, illegal.
I have to agree with the president that you should not have, you should not declare your state a sanctuary. That's going to be bad for tourism.
No, you declare a sanctuary, and that's where everyone does their farting.
Watch the back and to the right jerk he does as he does that. Let's see that one more time. Oh, here's you go.
Women and children. He directed the December assault and went on to assault.
Yeah, I think he just can't read that well. He's just tired. Congressional baseball fan.
The Latina category of brassers.
Bizarre politics update from Arizona. Recently, one of our sincerely wackadoo Republican state reps, who's an AM talk radio hack, in a single tweet celebrated attending the March for Life rally and announced that he just found out about a daughter he fathered from an Air Force affair 40 years ago.
Nice.
We have to get to these morons out of office. I'm becoming more convinced than ever that I'm going to have to run for one of these seats soon. Oh, yeah. On top of it, former, quote, most progressive member of our legislature is Kristen Sinema. Dolink. The doling out of money at rallies is the same methods that cartels are using to give out toys to children in Mexico to ingratiate themselves to people and make them shut up. Rush Limbaugh's...
There's always been walking around
tumors.
Money. I think people should not be naive.
Well, there's always been walking around money, but this is like more like the toys because it's like sort of more public.
Yeah. True.
Rush Limbaugh's tumors. Hey, everybody, because the walking around money was sort of like on the down low, and this is more like, look at him. He's giving. It's like when the mobster goes out and throws money out into the street.
Pablo Escobar.
Rush Limbaugh's tumors. Hey, everybody. Hey, asking for everybody to send positive vibes. We're working hard to get this project done, and we need all the help we can get. Hashtag all in this together. A square. Sam, Mike, you called this all with your SO2 bingo card. Sam, great clip of you on Hayes. Not sure if my IM made it last night, but I think Bannon was behind that Part 2 American Carnage speech. Thanks for coverage last night on MR. Local pizza historian. Hello, crew. Healthcare costs are rising. As such, 25% fewer Americans are seeking primary care. On a personal note, I had the flu 2 weeks ago, had to go to the hospital, and yesterday I got the bill, 10,000 American dollars. But don't worry, I was able to save a few bucks by telling the immediate care doctor not to call an ambulance, so there is a marker, and I'm an intelligent consumer. Well, you should always get your flu shot, even though, like, you know.
What are you looking at me for?
I was just looking straight out in front of the people who refused to get a flu shot when I told everybody that I would even pay for your flu shot.
Well, I got owned. I will admit, I can admit when I've been owned, and I've been owned.
There are years where it's only like 45% effective. Not 45% effective, like effective in 45% of the cases. But
they have to guess the flu strain, right?
Yeah, but that's
it'll be difficult.
That's better than not. So
I asked the nurse if I could get a flu shot now, and they looked at me like, "You stupid idiot."
You don't understand. You've already got the flu.
Can I have a flu shot now?
Amazing.
Should I start eating salads?
Can I have a salad now?
Do you think Bernie should be calling on Iowa results and for Tom Perez's resignation as a sign strength?
Yes.
Will it hurt Bernie to stay on the sidelines? I mean,
at the least, somebody's got to call for. I mean, literally, Tom Perez needs to resign.
I saw Carvel on James Carvel call for his resignation.
Yeah.
And there was another story, actually.
That guy could barely handle his Brown classes.
Where there's another story that I forgot about. If I can get my damn browser. Okay, so the two of the leaders of the Milwaukee Hus Committee for the 2020 DNC, this is the Democratic National Convention, were fired. The president and her chief of staff, because they were suspended because of a investigation into a toxic workplace allegation. They felt bullied and intimidated by the chief of staff of Gilbert.
So these are Klobuchar supporters.
Exactly.
Klobuchar reads the report. She's like, "Oh my God, pussies!
You guys know nothing.
You guys are pathetic." I remember one time we were prosecuting this nonviolent drug case to throw a Somali in jail for life. And I threw scalding coffee at my research assistant. We were laughing about it 3 hours later.
Calling from a 702 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how you doing? Hold on, let me get my phone ready. Yeah, this is Roger. How you doing?
Roger, where are you calling from?
Las Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm calling about the upcoming Nevada caucuses.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, a big thing here is the culinary union. I don't know how familiar you are with that. But huge thing here. I've been to...
whatever you got on your phone, it's not good. Are you on a headpiece?
Whatever.
Yeah, just go and talk right into it.
Well, it said take my speaker off. Let me put my speaker back on, okay? It might work better.
Okay.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Hold on.
Jesus.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I had a thing on my phone. All right. Anyway, I've been to like seven different candidates here. I've been to 3 forums that they had at the Culinary Workers Local, at the Union Hall. And the big thing with them, of course, is their insurance plan, because, they have an incredible insurance plan. I'm on it. It includes free almost anything. They have their own clinics. They have their own urgent care, their own pharmacy. And so basically they have a socialist system now, and they're afraid of losing it. So that's Bernie's big problem with them.
Interesting.
Yeah. The way they did their forums was pretty interesting. Basically, they had different people ask basically the same questions to every candidate. They wanted to know about healthcare. They wanted to know about immigration and, of course, union rights and cutting back the military thing. What I see right now, the big issue is if the Culinary Workers Union local or Unite Here, their national affiliate, endorses a candidate before the Nevada caucuses. I talked to Dee Taylor, who's the president of Unite here, and he said there's a very likely chance that it will happen.
Interesting. And he gave no indication. Like, how would that happen? Would you guys vote on it, or would they just choose? Would the leadership choose?
It would probably. It would most likely. Well, if it's at the leaders of the locals getting together and voting.
Yeah. Well, I imagine Bernie's people on the ground are aware of that and are trying to pitch people. I mean, it's sort of hard to sort of, I don't know. I don't know how you can promote solidarity and say like, well, we got ours. And
well, I mean,
but I get it. Material benefits, right? I mean,
yeah. Well, I agree with you, and I mean, I think what they need is an assurance that they'll be able to keep their clinics and their pharmacies and everything like that, because
I don't know why they wouldn't be able to.
Billions of dollars invested in those things.
Yeah. I don't know why they wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
I appreciate the call.
I mean, sure, no problem. Thanks. Bye.
I don't know why they wouldn't be able to keep those. I mean,
you can't keep them.
At the end of the day,
they're going away.
You're getting this stuff free one way, you can get it stuff free another way. There's no reason why these entities can't exist, and maybe you just get more clients, maybe you get more customers. Because things have been expanded. Who knows?
They could go.
Medicare for All will be utilizing the existing infrastructure, as well as building more.
Indeed. Let's watch Nancy Pelosi. It's sort of stunning. We talked about this in real time last night. What if I don't know, the idea that like John McCain in 2009 goes down to Venezuela and is introduced as the president of the United States. That would be a little bit messed up.
A little bit.
Even if, I mean, let's say, I don't know, let's say there was a situation where Hillary Clinton went down there. She won more votes. And she went down to Venezuela and she was there and they referred to her as the president. We might sort of laugh and this and that, but it'd be a little bit disturbing, particularly if the dynamic between the two countries was reversed as to what it is now. In other words, if we were dependent on them not like stirring up possible violence. Well, last night, Donald Trump not only invited Juan Guaido to the State of the Union, I guess the guy that they had hoped would become the president. Now he's like 3 removed almost. Like he's gotten less presidential as the support as the U.S. offered his support.
No, I just feel bad for the guy now.
He's just really odd man out. He's like literally trying to climb into the parliament because he keeps getting pushed out further and further out.
I don't
because of all his popular support. And part of the problem is not just that this is Donald Trump's policy, but apparently it's not just the Democratic leadership's policy. Like there's a race to see who can be more supportive of this. In fact, Nancy Pelosi gets up quicker than Mike Pence. And she's, Mike Pence, he looks old, but he's like, I think he's like 45, 50, right? Maybe in the early 50s.
He's that young? Oh.
She's, she's got a couple decades on him, but she just...
I'm 100 years old and I still will rise for a coup in Latin America.
This is pretty stunning.
He's a very brave man. Venezuela. Juan Guaido.
Oh, go back, because I want to hear him introduced as the president of Venezuela. Oh, all right. Well, that's all right. He's introduced as the president of Venezuela. He's not the president of Venezuela.
No.
Venezuela. Juan Guaido. Mr. President, please take this message back to your family.
Please take this message back. We've appointed you president.
Please take this message, but we've appointed you president, so you're president now.
In case you needed a reminder that most of the Democrats are terrible on foreign policy.
Yeah, I would say everyone there. The idea that I've appointed you president, that we can do that now.
There was also applauding for, I mean, Pelosi, I don't think stood up for that one, but there was applauding for assassinating Soleimani. It's a bipartisan imperial foreign policy. There's no doubt about it.
I don't think that we would have seen that from a Democratic administration. I'm not convinced that we wouldn't have seen support for Guaido under a Democratic administration.
Well, there's no doubt we'd see support. Well, no, I said applause last night. I think the assassination against Soleimani, unlikely, but I do think you could see the dynamic is pretty obvious, right? Like, even if you go back to Vietnam, LBJ expands, let's call it what it is, genocide in Vietnam. It sets the stage. And then, yes, under a Republican president, that's when it goes into Cambodia and Laos. Like, Obama has a global assassination program. And then, yes, it's escalated in another level of recklessness by a Republican. There are subtle differences, but the context is imperial.
I gotta say, the moment when Elizabeth Warren really lost me, and I went from oh, she's my second choice to absolutely not, was when she recognized Guaido as the president of Venezuela.
Who is your second choice if it's not her?
Nobody.
It's gotta be Steiger.
I am Bernie or bust in primary in general, and honestly, at this point, I would go Steyer or Gabbard over Warren.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I would. I cannot just. I mean, Steyer maybe is a question mark. He is a billionaire, but look. I know Gabbard has bad things on foreign policy. Warren has not a single thing I've liked on foreign policy, and that's affecting.
Yeah, Tulsi's like a mixed bag at least.
I mean, I'll give her an idiosyncratic mixed bag over continuity of disaster, but thank God that isn't the choice.
Lastly, there was another drama that played out at the State of the Union. It was Handgate and Ripgate that took place. What's that?
And Clapgate would be the other one.
Clapgate? Now, Clapgate, them not clapping is a standard fare.
Oh, no, I mean when Pelosi clapped at Trump.
Oh, clapped at him?
Remember that? You don't remember that?
No, from last night?
That? No, it was from previous one.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about this one.
Oh, okay.
And because we had Snubgate, you got to start with Snubgate because that's what happened first. Or Handgate. I'm not sure. Handshake Gate. We haven't come up with a great line for it, but here it is. This is Handshake Gate. Trump comes in and
timing here could be
hands.
On the other hand, the president does give this
hands the speeches.
With the certainty that he will
gives that speech. She gives his hand out. He either doesn't see it or just ices her. And it's a little bit awkward for her. She pretends like that didn't happen. And then the umpire strikes back. Here she is after the speech doing something that is really, really just horrific. Can you imagine ripping paper?
Address to the nation tonight, just sort of about.
Oh no, she didn't.
Yeah, she did it twice too. That's it. She did two different sections of it. I think because it was probably a thick speech, and so she wasn't sure that she could do all of it. And apparently now people are just the right is up in arms. How could she rip the paper? It's sort of stunning. Their president has said that Congress people who are people of color should go back to where they came from, not realizing that they not only are they Congress people, but they live in America.
It's annoying the propaganda value in gesture politics because we saw it a lot with Trudeau and his anti-Trump stuff where everyone thought he was going to be a resistance hero for a while. And I mean, I think there's some frustration. Matt Duss is getting some hot water because he said, she applauded him this entire speech, but then she gave you a GIF at the end.
Right.
And I think I think it's just an eye roll, I think, for people like us that,
Yeah. Well, I think either way, You know what it's like? If you're not gonna take the ripping seriously, you shouldn't take the applauding so seriously either. Like
Well, and
it's
also-
all performative
And also,
stuff.
let's be like, it's just the era of, even in those own terms, it's just diminishing returns. It's like there might have been a minute in 2017 where that type, or 2018 when there was a little bit of power theoretically, where maybe that had some kind of performative effect. But now it's like a year in, she passes all the major legislation that he wants, and we expect it. We know that. I knew going, that's another bet we could have taken. What is Nancy Pelosi going to do so that people, freak out on Twitter and create a bunch of silly memes? Now, I do have one.
She is posting well, though, I must say.
I do have one suggestion that would actually make a difference, and this would entail some risk, and I'm not even really joking here. It would be on the continuum, and it would do something. If she brought him in, if he somehow she could get him to shake her hand, and while he is under her and they are shaking, and she would have to do it with a smile and with a very gentle approach, but definitionally condescending. And she went, and no, shaking. Other hand, that was a good job. You rub the hair, disassemble it in front of the country. That would be a win.
So shake the hand
Shake
and
the
then
hand.
go.
Yeah, good job. Good speech. Oh, what did I just do?
I don't think she could actually reach on the top of his head. She's shorter than he is. He's a tall guy.
No. When she's standing over him.
Oh, there.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That would be
the
muss
move.
the hair right after
that.
speech.
That's the move right there.
Yas, Queen.
It's. Secret
I would
Service
give
could
it,
would
send her to Guantanamo now. But that would actually do something.
Or even maybe something like this, like shake the hand and do something. But he snubbed her on the handshake, so he didn't have a chance.
Right.
She could have gone like, just to give it a look, like, oh, I can see your scalp, something like that. You
smell
like a
bad.
look.
I just want them to destroy each other.
Or this would be good, is if during the speech at one point she just goes, oh.
That would be actually like Trump level.
I'm sorry,
I
I didn't mean to react like someone had farted, but something smelled really bad.
She just trumps it the next time. It's like, you're trying to listen to the speech, and then all of a sudden it's disgusting. And everyone noticed.
This is a pretty stunning exchange, and apparently people have gotten on this guy on Twitter, and
this guy's not the sharpest.
I saw something he posted on Twitter. We'll talk about it in a second. Maybe you can find it. It's where he says, like, if you're a guy making $15 an hour or something to that effect, you don't care the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. You pull that up if you can find that. But
what the hell?
Here is this exchange with Jason Johnson and Nina Turner.
Close viewers watching in our last segment may have heard Bernie surrogate Nina Turner call Mayor Bloomberg an oligarch, to which our own Jason Johnson took exception. State Senator Turner from Ohio is still listening in Des Moines because she wanted a moment to respond. Nina?
Yes.
Senator. Thank you so very much. It's just ironic to me that somebody would defend the wealthiest people in this country over the working people of this country. We need real campaign finance reform to the extent that a Mayor Bloomberg can totally finance his campaign. He doesn't have to go out to the people. He doesn't have to build a movement. He doesn't have to talk to people. He can buy his way. It is the same attitude that the elites, maybe Jason likes the word elite over oligarch, but it's the same attitude that the elites had in 1930 against FDR. All of them lined up against him, and he said, I welcome your hatred, because he was standing up for the people. And that is the same message that Senator Bernie Sanders has to the everyday people of this nation, that I welcome the hatred of the elites because I am standing up for you. So cry me a river for the wealthy people in this country.
Nina, you work for a candidate who's part of the 1%. I have no problem with criticizing the system that allows Mike Bloomberg to make all the money that he makes, the system that allows him to buy what he wants to buy, the system that allows him to buy himself into the administration and buy himself into the debates is a problem. But to call him an oligarch, I think, is a misnomer in this environment. And again, you're working for somebody who's part of the 1%. Do you call him an oligarch? No, you don't. You say he's a rich guy. Because just because somebody has a tremendous amount of money doesn't mean that they're not necessarily representing the people. And if you want to use the term elite, you can use whatever kind of term that you want to use. But at the end of the day, the enemy of this country, the enemy of the poor, is not just everybody who happens to be rich. It is a capitalistic system that abuses people. And if you want to speak about that, that's fine. But if you want to name call people, that's not going to help Bernie if he becomes a nominee, and he's going to need Mike Bloomberg's money.
I'm not name calling anywhere.
If he's going to need Mike Bloomberg's money down the road.
It's ironic that you're defending somebody that is buying his way through the democracy. Yes, you are.
I know this works on
defending
Twitter because that's how you guys operate. But when it comes to actual campaign politics, it makes sense to actually describe people for the positions that they have.
Is this about a word? Is this about a word, Jason? Is this about a word?
No, it's not just about a word. It's about the implications of it, and it's about criticizing the system versus criticizing individuals. Like I said, I wouldn't call Bernie Sanders an oligarch, and he happens to be part of the 1%. I would say he's somebody who's wealthy, but who's dedicated himself to trying to uplift people who are poor.
He just got there at the age of 78 years old.
Okay, let me end this. I just want to bring, because I do like this.
Well, all right, so here's the thing. That Jason hurt his own argument by saying it's not just about the word. Because, you could argue that the word is thrown around a little bit too loosely. But the fact of the matter is that when you're talking about someone who is a billionaire, and it's true, Bernie Sanders is in the 1%. But when you're talking about somebody who's a billionaire, whose own personal wealth rivals that of like 25% of the country in the aggregate, one who has the ability, without really making a hard decision. I'm sure it's a little bit of a hard decision, but if you take out the part like, what's it going to do to my family and this and that, in terms of spending the money, the ability for him to come in and exclusively by his net worth, because that's how he also became mayor of New York City, exclusively by his net worth. And that's also how he had 3 terms instead of 2. Literally bought that 3rd term exclusively by his wealth, being able to come in and register in the national polls, to be able to avoid being in the debates because he doesn't need to take a single donation. Like, to avoid taking donations, to avoid being presented to the public. To have that type of power in society, that type of spending power, to own his entire, a massive media enterprise, which even if he had held to the pledge that he made about not reporting on his rivals in the election, still would be highly problematic. An oligarch specifically is a small group of leaders of the country, and it's almost impossible to say. Obviously, maybe there's a dividing line that Jason could have been thinking about. Like, if you're not one of 20 people that run everything, there's no such thing as an oligarchy. But
Can I just say,
he said it wasn't just about
$60 billion.
Right.
$60 billion.
It's a statement of fact. Like, the fact that he took it as an insult says volumes about,
Well, it's not a question of insult. He just thinks it's not relevant that the system, but the idea that these people with this kind of money are not in any way responsible for their actions or need to take any responsibility, that it's just the system. Yes, the system allows for people to become billionaires like that. But it's also problematic where they say, nobody's saying that Michael Bloomberg can't run, but he is creating his own rules here with his money. He is changing the course of where the country goes with his money. If he left it all in the bank, we would have a systemic problem because he's hoarding that money. But the fact that he's deploying it in this way to have such influence over the country is a problem of his making too. It is a systemic problem that we allow people to get that money. It is a Michael Bloomberg problem that he's using it to basically control the lives of millions of people. And he's also, frankly, sucking up campaign staff in such a way that there's no availability for people down ticket to hire people. Because Michael Bloomberg's coming in a campaign that has like 4% rating nationally.
And has people who work for him who are on the rules committee of the DNC.
Well, on top of which, he is buying his way onto this situation. He's buying his way into these endorsements. And by buying, I mean he is viable because of his own money.
So there's a fudge when you say that Bernie's in the 1%. He's in the 1% lately in terms of earning per year because he's became a best-selling author. But in terms of wealth, it's actually about 10.7 million. Bernie's at like 2.5. So
Right.
I mean, and I think like an oligarch, or to be a really rich person, you really need the ability to control the labor of a whole bunch of people. Right. Like. So Bernie could like have a small startup.
1% definitionally is not the oligarchy. The oligarchy is the 0.001%.
Right. And I think I just want to say, like, there's also, I think, the connotation that I would assume Jason is doing, because I've never seen Jason say anything that is in any way like insightful and not sort of typical pablum from cable news. Like, I think he's just upset, frankly, because you're only supposed to use that word in a Russian context. And I think that we should use that word freely and openly. I can think of almost definitionally billionaires have a skewing effect on the political process, like you were saying.
If he had said,
and in Bloomberg's case, he is actually much closer along the lines too, if you want to use that narrow example, which I don't, but I'll play with it for a second. He is more analogous to something you'd see in Russia or Ukraine. He is a billionaire who owns media, is in a major part of finance, and purchases political office.
Yeah, if he's not an oligarch, like literally nobody is.
Well, but the thing is that if Jason had said the word is plutocrat, not oligarch.
I don't think that's what he was
well,
trying
but that's
for.
the point, is that he had an out there where he could be like, yes, I think that the term is not specific enough. It is incorrect to say that he's an oligarch. He is a plutocrat. We have a plutocracy and he's a plutocrat. If he had said that, I think I would have been like, okay, fair enough. You know, you're not, but he said it's the idea of it. And here's the thing. If you can find that tweet from him where he says, this is where... What's that? You're blocked by him?
Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
Nice.
I'm blocked too.
I'm blocked.
Blocked by him? Curious.
He says, if I'm somebody who's struggling to make $15 an hour, I don't care. And then a couple other things. I need healthcare. I don't care the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire. And that is like the other thing that's true of that person probably is they don't see the difference between you and the president of Comcast.
Right.
You're on TV and there's no difference because it's just, you're just on one side of the tracks. You're just on one side of the equation. It doesn't matter where you fit into that person. That statement is in of itself is ridiculous. If that person making $15 an hour or wanting to make $15 an hour was to dig into it, they would find a huge difference between what billionaires and millionaires in this country, their power to make sure that doesn't happen.
I also,
the idea that poor people don't have the capacity to understand that is in and of itself offensive.
Well, I don't know if it's a question of poor people have the capacity. I don't have the tweet in front of me, but the question isn't whether they have the capacity. I don't know if that's what he was saying, like they can't tell or they don't care. Yeah, here it is. If you don't have health care and I'm struggling to make $15 an hour, the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire is negligible to me. Order of magnitude isn't the issue. The system is. But the fact of the matter is that when you get to a billionaire, there is a qualitative difference in terms of your impact on society. Millionaires need to go through customs when they fly into the country.
Right.
Billionaires do not.
That's right.
That is a fact. They don't go into customs. They don't get searched. Millionaires cannot call up the president of any university in the country and say, I don't like your policy on XYZ, and get a call back and get an answer within an hour.
That's
Billionaires
so wild.
do. The millionaires don't have the ability to rival even a percentage, a significant double-digit percentage of the wealth of the entire country. 3 people
have more wealth in this country than 50% of the population. 3 people have more wealth than 150 million. If the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire is negligible, that is just wrong. You may not care as that person because you got other things you got to deal with. But the difference is not negligible. In fact, if you send your kids to school, it's not negligible because a millionaire cannot change education policy in this country. A billionaire can, and a billionaire did for 10, 15 years.
Well, I mean,
this is the idea that this guy's an academic is sort of shocking to me.
Not to me, but I'm very cashed out on the meritocracy. But I am a little bit closer to Jamie in that I do sense some of that. I think there's some stealth condescension there. But regardless, I mean, even if I were to accept his frame, then it would be my public task to help break down why that difference is fundamental to understanding what your predicament is, which is your point. So there's no way
Instead,
that
he's
works.
like, I'm going to act like one of this theoretical person struggling to make $15 an hour and ignore that difference myself.
Right, exactly. So first I'll pretend that they don't get it, they don't care, and then I'll actually, through osmosis with it's very Chris Matthews-esque, actually. You know, I have an imaginary friend, and they said this, and therefore that prompts what I was saying.
And if the problem is the system, not the people, I don't know how any of this would discredit Bernie, because if, it doesn't matter if you're a millionaire or a billionaire, it matters if you're trying to dismantle the system that creates millionaires and billionaires, and Bernie would be the choice.
I'm sorry. It's also just so, let's even take an example of another way of framing this, which is a little bit more problematic, but it also is ridiculous. People make these distinctions all the time. You ask somebody, do you think LeBron should pay higher taxes? They'll probably say, yeah, because he's incredibly wealthy and he agrees he should pay higher taxes. But do you begrudge him making a huge amount of money? Most people will still absolutely say no, because they appreciate and enjoy what he does. What about some guy what about like Jamie Dimon? What about that guy? The amount of money he has, and do you begrudge it a little bit? I think it's more likely that people would say yes.
Well, it's not just that I begrudge how much money
or
he's
that
making.
I'm talking on
the point is Jamie Dimon structurally is a threat. Yeah. His actions, the way he makes money,
is a structural threat.
Is a structural and a direct material threat. I mean, look, they're making money. In some instances, it's not a zero sum. It's a zero sum situation. They're making money off of basically other people's immiseration. Not always, but certainly in the context of foreclosures. And LeBron he's just making money providing entertainment.
Yeah, no, as I've said before, you cannot amass $1 billion by your own labor. You have to be exploiting other people. Whether you're doing it in a nice way or a mean way, you're still exploiting people.
Yeah. Wait, I thought Jamie Dimon was just the fastest at, clearing bank deposits, and that's why he made so much money.
Right.
Just a little sports joke.
Here is James Carville. And I think this was right after he had said, we got to fire Tom Perez. I don't know what the hell he's doing.
I remember he had a great line during remember the BP oil spill? Like in 2010?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and he said when Obama was Obama was very low key on that, and Carville said that FDR would have jumped out of his wheelchair to get into the Gulf and go after BP. Yeah.
Now I think Carville believes what he's saying here. I mean, I also think that he is. I think he's wrong. I think he believes what he's saying here. I don't know that he has a particular dog in this fight. I don't know. He was talking that he's an old man, but here, you decide.
A lot of people compare him to Jeremy Corbyn. I say he might be closer to Lopez Obrador in Mexico, somebody who manages to get in the power.
Just ironically enough, here is Jason Johnson now defending Bernie Sanders.
What's his deal?
I don't know. We'll see what he says about Obrador.
Well,
I wonder where this is going.
Carville says before this, he says, I'm afraid we got Jeremy Corbyn, and we should have learned the lesson. We don't want to be the Labor Party here because they just got licked.
Right.
But Jason Johnson has a different theory as to who Sanders represents in this context.
Which that Sanders could win, but then he's going to say that Obrador is oligarchic.
Yeah, no, it's true. I
Autocratic
hear
or some
I might
nonsense.
have
Anyway,
a different
sorry.
association with it than he does.
Corbyn. I say he might be closer to Lopez Obrador in Mexico, somebody who manages to get into power because the existing parties have so disappointed everybody. People are disgusted with Democrats. They don't trust Republicans. They go for Bernie. Do you think that is a path to victory if he makes that argument?
Why do I think people are disgusted with Democrats? We had the highest turnout in 2018 since women were granted the right to vote. We had the biggest margin. We ran a smart campaign, and it worked. All right? It matters who the candidate is. It matters what a party chooses to talk about. I mean, I'm 75 years old. Why am I here doing this? Because I am scared to death. That's why. And we got to let's get relevant here, people, for sure. Okay. That's why I don't Lopez Obrador. All the Sanders people were taking pictures wishing Jeremy Corbyn the best.
Oh, and they were mistaken. They were very mistaken, yes.
Yeah, and I don't want to go down that path.
Okay, all I've got for you, James, is Claire. I just love you.
I love you too, and your analysis. If you look at the press corps went AOC crazy in the Iowa caucuses of liberal, it's too whatever. To combine the left side of the party, and I don't consider myself a liberal, by the way. I'm not a moderate, but they Senator Klobuchar and Buttigieg got a lot of votes. And we got to decide what we want to be. Do we want to be an ideological cult, or do we want to have a majoritarian instinct to be a majority party? I know where you stand on that, Senator, because you had to run in a red state.
Right.
So, and again, you and I know that 18% of the country elects 52 senators. And the urban core is not going to get it done. What we need is power. You understand? That's what this is about. Without power, you have nothing. Yep. You just have talking points. In the Marine Corps, they say, wish in one hand and do something in the other. Which hand is going to fill up the fastest? we better get serious here. And, a lot of Democrats around the country are concerned.
I don't disagree with everything he's saying.
Well, I think the broad strokes.
Character.
I think his one in the midterm elections, I think what was driving people to a large extent was a disdain of Trump. And to the extent that there was any campaign run by the Democrats, it was around health care. Now, I do think that there is value in framing an argument for Medicare for All as an extension of the Affordable Care Act. I don't think that's quite accurate, frankly, but it is if you look at specifically like Medicaid. We want to take the part of the Affordable Care Act that expanded Medicaid, and we want to up its game into Medicare and provide it for everybody. But the Democrats ran on protecting health care for, that was probably the most consistent thing that each congressional candidate ran on, was protecting health care. And to the extent that it wasn't Trump and just sort of negative partisanship that drove people out. And I think that's where the failure is of his analysis. Now, with that said, he also said, he doesn't like any of the candidates. But
I think his point, first in the beginning about, I don't know about the Democrats being popular. And I think, frankly, in the general election, we might hear, if they're smart, a little bit less about socialism, which I will miss, but it's fine. And a little bit more about being an independent, which I think could play extremely well in
that's what Johnson was saying.
Yeah, no. Actually, Johnson's Obrador point, I think, was on point. I think that's a much closer analogy, frankly. The one thing I do think about Carville, which I think people are going to need to start to think about, and, it shows up with, I don't want to reopen it, but the Joe Rogan thing's an obvious example, is this is not just about signaling to and catering to a specific crowd. It's about building out and actually winning. And I wish there were more people, with some of that instinct in frankly like the socialist and left orbit, because it's really important, because at the end of the day, he's right. If you don't get power, it doesn't really matter. And that was part of some of the breakdown, to the extent that Labor could control anything in the UK, and I don't think they could mostly control it. It was complete propaganda war. I think at times there was a little bit of like some sense of like, oh, well, we'll lose, but we'll make the point.
Well,
Forget it.
He's right about needing power, but he's wrong about how we get the power. And he's making the same mistake that the Democrats have made forever, which is pandering to this mythical moderate who is ideologically in the center of the political spectrum.
That's not really true in his case.
Doesn't support things like Medicare for All is incredibly popular. People might not say, oh, I identify with socialism, but if you poll them, does everybody need health care? They'll say yes. Like the electorate is a bundle of contradictions, and
I don't think the polling is so.
Democrats think that they're conservative
Carville is
when they're
closer
not.
to appealing to where the electorate is actually at in his career, which is why he's one of the people who's interesting to talk to. So he is. Whatever. This doesn't make him look bad at all. I met him once in some green room, and he literally, this is like way before Bernie was on the map, and obviously he's really tight with the Clintons, and he was just like, what Mrs. Clinton needs to do is needs to show that she'll go after those Wall Street motherfuckers. Now, whatever you think of, obviously, I don't believe she would ever do that for a variety of reasons. But I'm saying, and you look back at the 92 campaign he designed for Bill Clinton, it was a fusion, including of some things that were appalling, like overt appeals to naked racism. Like that's what Greenberg and him, in my opinion, cooked up. But it was a lot of talk about not single payer, but taking on the banks, national health care, investing in people. So he's someone who actually, his trajectory is more of that economically populist, socially moderate thing, which is where there is a center. Like to the extent there's a center, that is where it is.
Medicare for All, it is not, the polling is not terribly clear on this. So if you go, there was a poll by the Kaiser Foundation, which is a fairly, I think, reputable polling outfit in terms of this stuff. As Medicare for All becomes a staple in national conversations, they go on to say that it depends on how you ask the question.
No crap.
What's that?
Yeah, of course.
Well, of course. And so it's not clear that Donald Trump won't be able to message, or the Republicans won't be able to message better than the Democrats. It's unclear, right? We don't know.
But Carville's a guy who's not saying run against Trump on cutting the deficit and on, social
Absolutely.
equity. He's saying you go up against Trump on corporate tax cuts and remind people that you like police.
Well, I think he
which
would
is
say,
frankly, that is where a lot of people are at. So we got to be strategically sound about this.
The things that he said in that same interview, I watched it live, was he said, you're going to go out there and you're going to talk about prisoners getting the vote, or you're going to talk about providing health care to undocumented immigrants, you're going to lose.
Yep.
And that's
what needs to be overcome. And that's a real thing he's identified.
This polling also finds more Democrats and Democratic-leaning independents would prefer voting for a candidate who wants to build on the ACA in order to expand coverage and reduce costs rather than replace the ACA with a Medicare for All plan. Now, I mean, look, so much of this is about messaging, and so much is it about moving it in a certain direction. And I'm not even convinced that, even though you can look at this polling, that broadly speaking, the idea of just sort of strong and wrong doesn't necessarily sway more votes with people. I'm just saying that it's not, I don't think it's accurate to say that it's a slam dunk that Medicare for All is more popular with people. It really depends on how you ask the question, relative to what, et cetera, et cetera. That doesn't mean that deployed in the right hands, it can't be more effective than another proposal that people perceive is wishy-washy. Because again, I do think that particularly in this era, people value a certain amount of like frankness from their candidate over maybe the specific ideas.
I think that's how Bernie does get away with the felons voting thing, which again, I completely agree with. Trump will demonize him on it. And I think the way Bernie specifically gets away with it goes back to the Rogan clip. The dude says what he thinks, and he said it for decades, and that will have some salutary effect. But as a general message, like, I think people do need to be more prepared, like not on policy, but on like signifying to people, like in a general election, like, I love the troops. there's a border. Like, they're going to have to do a lot of stuff like that, of course.
And as long as he doesn't waver on policy, I think that will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, he may not even have the opportunity to waver on policy. I mean, who knows?
I don't think a lot of it isn't policy.
That's been the dividing line when we talk about a lot of this culture war stuff, and when we were talking about the Rogan stuff. I mean, Bernie's not changing his policy platform on transgender rights. He's not changing his policy platform on.
The concern with that is it's the flip side of what is the selling point of Sanders, right? The idea is that he's going to refashion the electorate in such a way that it's going to make a legislative agenda easier, because he's going to bring in certain members of a coalition that are going to influence lawmakers, right? That's the argument with Sanders, right? I mean, that's how the powers. Well, it cuts the other way too. Because if you're going to bring in X amount of people because they're going to be more interested in material gains, and therefore they're going to pressure Joe Manchin, let's say, in West Virginia as an example, to get Medicare for All, those people are also going to come in with another whole set of policies that may not be that. I mean, theoretically, that's the argument that the people are making. Is not that Sanders is necessarily, changing his agenda to fit what Joe Rogan wants, but that in the same way that supposedly Sanders is going to create a different electorate that's going to pressure their lawmakers, they're not just coming in with stuff that we like.
Let me just say real quick, though.
That may, go
let me
against
just say,
that's
though,
the argument.
I want to say, first of all, just to be fair, Rogan definitely on actual legal issues, which are at the end of the day is what we're actually talking about, does support.
Yes.
Okay, so that's really important.
But just the other day was talking about how transgender kids shouldn't be able to get gender-affirming care.
But in addition to that,
they don't.
But
3-year-olds don't. That's also the reality, is that none of that, you don't get any of those type of therapy until you start going through.
No, I mean, the most that you would give to an underage kid is puberty blockers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He was talking about 3-year-olds.
But he was talking about how you shouldn't be able to give puberty blockers to transgender teens.
But the other other really important point here, though, is that if the people who are making that point, if they're right, then there's political persuasion and all aspects of political science and the labor movement and any number of positive lessons we've learned. And the only possibility of recreating some type of durable electorate and the Adolph Reed project and the Baird Rustin project is done, right? Like the idea is that on one hand, you have a broad enough coalition where you're not going to be able to mandate everybody's social etiquette and how they talk or how everybody's personal beliefs are. And I don't think you should try to. But on the other hand, when it comes to substantive matters of rights and equity, that working in shared undertakings and shared endeavors has a positive effect. Yeah. And frankly, I think you even already see that with some of the response, to Bernie reaching out to these broader electorates. So I see a lot of people who make that argument. I see people who just want to be in a clubhouse. I don't see them wanting to actually win or really change anything. And even when Obama, when he signed the executive order and when he followed the lead of the Supreme Court on marriage equity, inside his coalition, the rates of support for transgender rights and marriage equity went up. That's how you do it. Yeah. You don't do it by isolating and demagoguing.
Yeah, well, it's analogous to like people in the labor movement changing their attitudes on race after working together with workers of different races for a shared cause, for common interests. Like so much of the time, this is how these kinds of bigotries, right, that are not based in rationality, you can't always talk people out of it because it's not rational in the first place. That's how these attitudes change. They change with a sense of shared purpose and linked fate.
Let's go to the IMs. Fievel Mouskowitz. Note, this would have been relevant 3 weeks ago, but here we go anyways. If only my poor immigrant parents had access to Success Academy, that would accommodate their weekly work schedule of going between 3 jobs instead of forcing them to volunteer at my school in exchange for providing me with a free quality education. If only then, perhaps I wouldn't have ended up on the streets running with some bad boy cats. Christo, regarding the thinly veiled, never Bernie media freakout, Sam, do you think you could give to your old pal Charlie Pierce a good talking to about Senator Sanders? I occasionally hate listen to the Stephanie Miller show, and his weekly appearances on the show are increasingly Bernie unfriendly. For what it's worth, I'd love to see you find more ways to school the class of pundit that Miller's or Chris Matthews show attract. Their audience hear way more from Never Trump Republicans than people on the left. These are folks in need of an education as every bit as much as the young libertarians you own. Meanwhile, MR remains in top form 2020 as well as all the satellite shows. Happily, I'll be among those at the Bell House Friday. Left is best. Dissident Baby New Year. Can you please put the Biden drops online somewhere? Yeah, they are on our show.
Patreon.com/literary hangover. We'll see what we can do.
That's the back door. Cancel Sam. If Iowa were a South American country, the CIA would have already declared the fascist as a winner. Why not frame Medicare for All as building on the ACA? It's just rhetoric anyways. Might as well if it's that is honestly what I would recommend, because why not? I mean, we call it Medicare for All, but it's really actually closer to Medicaid for all.
Should have called it Obamacare for All. No, actually, maybe not. That probably wouldn't have worked.
I don't know. I mean,
Bernie care for all.
It's not quite
because Bernie
there,
does
maybe.
care.
I think calling it. I mean,
Obamacare for free.
I think it's like
Obamacare only not terrible.
Well, the thing is that Obamacare includes the expansion of Medicaid to hundreds of thousands of people. We heard that today.
Sure.
And that is, you can, and it also includes no preconditions, no discrimination because of existing preconditions, no lifetime, no yearly limits, et cetera, patient protections. It's a failure on the delivery of affordable care for not even for everybody, because it doesn't impact only the patient protections impact everybody else. We're talking about maybe another 10 million people around the country, and for them it does nothing. It does nothing.
I mean, for anyone who's ever had to actually buy insurance on the Obamacare exchanges, that's the connotation for us. Like, oh, I am now being forced to pay more money than I can afford for a health plan that really sucks and that I can't afford to use. So maybe there aren't enough of us to make a huge
There's only
dent
3%
in the conversation.
Yeah, we're not enough.
3% of the country.
That's what it makes me think about.
Yeah, it makes me think of a really dumb website that wants me to pretend it's not a huge scam.
There's only 3% of the country who are in that situation, right? You're talking about 10 million people out of a country of 300 million. There's another 10 million who got the expanded Medicaid. And then everybody else buys their insurance off the exchanges, or they get it from their union, or they get it from their employer. And the idea with the public option was to be in the exchange and would have impacted a fraction of the 10 million people. Maybe a million, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 5, maybe half, maybe 6. I mean, and the idea was once you start walking around going like, I got this public option on the exchange and it's awesome, then I start going like, well, wait a second, Medicare for All becomes easier. But they didn't do the public option. I don't know if I even buy into that because of the numbers of people we're talking about. It's when you don't like your insurance, you hear a lot more about it, but still you're only talking about 3% of the population. And so I mean I think from a rhetorical standpoint, expanding on the ACA, but I do not think that we're going to do that.
My grandmother was so shocked when I was telling her about the ways Obamacare had failed me. She just had no idea.
Right, because it doesn't, I mean, and the hard part is, folks, I'm not going to get to any calls today. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No new Iowa results? Are there any Iowa caucus results? Okay, but there's nothing new in the dynamic?
I mean, at this point,
let's wait.
It's not going to change dramatically.
How much of effect do you think Romney voting to convict him will have?
Did Romney vote?
Romney's voting to convict Trump.
Well, I think that is.
Hello, this is Romney.
I think that is actually sort of a big deal.
Okay.
Because suddenly what you have is there were bipartisan votes.
That's what I'm thinking.
To convict Donald Trump. Yeah. Now, I want to make something clear here. This is also another messaging thing, right? I mean, because if you look at like how much is being made of Nancy Pelosi tearing up the speech versus Donald Trump not shaking Nancy Pelosi's hand, two very inconsequential things. One is a major like battle cry. It's a bloody flag for the Republicans. The other one nobody even hears about. With Romney, you need to, the Democrats need to really push that. I'm off the phones, and we're ending the show because I got to do the thing. But we will take more calls on tomorrow and on Friday, and just a house cleaning. What we're going to do for debate coverage Friday night is going to be a little bit different. I am going up to New Hampshire. I am going to be in the press area, and I'm going to be doing it live on YouTube without seeing the debate. So you're going to watch the debate, and you can have my commentary if you want next to it. And then I'm going to be on MSNBC for a couple hours. So going up to New Hampshire, going up to Manchester. The last time I was there, I did a little bit of stand-up, I think. Yeah, a long time ago.
When was that?
That was years ago. 20 years ago. I guess I was there for the 2008 primary, too. But all right, 3 more IMs, then we're out here. Yes, I live in Wyoming. All the radio shows are saying Rush knew he was going to get that medal. He just didn't know he was going home with it after the speech. Colleen from but when he was announced is when he did the what?
He waited for everyone else to stand up around him.
Yeah, like I'm still in shock.
What's happening?
I have to say the reason Shadow gave for their name sounds like an edgelord wrote it. Bahab, there's video of Rush being asked about receiving the Medal of Freedom as he is entering the State of the Union address. Oh shoot. I wish we had that. John McCain's brain tumor. Hi, John McCain's brain tumor here. Speaking on behalf of Rush's lungs, we have only one thing to say. We are lesions. And the final I am of the day. Rush is on, Sam. His deathbed. Oh, all right.
It wasn't even funny, but it's
sort of
spirited.
Yeah. You get points for being mean-spirited.
Yeah, exactly. That was
See you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you?